Well, here we have the Wilsonian, which is a posh apartment hotel originally, now an apartment. And it was built in 1923. Well, we'll just go inside and we'll talk about one of its residents. Or maybe two. As you can see, this is a fairly posh entryway with handcrafted tiles and the rest of it here. Very Art Deco. So we'll just talk about one of the residents, as I said. Bertha Knight Landis moved with her husband Henry to Seattle in 1895 when he became professor of geology at the brand new Denny Hall, and in the course of time was named Dean of Science and acting president prior to the appointment of Henry Suzzalo, as well as a state geologist. That's Henry. Meanwhile, following women's suffrage in Washington in 1910 and nationwide a decade later, she ran for city council in 1922 on a platform of municipal housekeeping. In an age of police corruption and bootlegging after Prohibition took effect in 1920. Well, anyway, she was elected by a landslide 79%, and when the Wilsonian here opened as an apartment hotel the following year, that's actually exactly 100 years ago, the power couple, Henry and Bertha, moved in here where they had light housekeeping and dining room service. And that allowed Bertha to concentrate as city councilwoman on administering a budget of $9.5 million, as she put it. Well, as part of the civic betterment agenda through regulation, she managed to get the council to license dance halls, which at the same time brought employment to women and prostitution to nightlife. So by regulating them to only daytime hours, she solved much of that problem. Or she and the council, I should say. Then she was chosen city council president in 1924, and here we have a picture of the mayor, Doc Brown, congratulating her on her appointment as city council president. So the next day after this picture was taken, he went to New York to the Democratic National Convention, and she became acting mayor. Well, she had her broom out, and the first thing she did was to call the police chief on the carpet. She stated that the police say there had either simple inefficiency or collusion between the police force and criminals, and that a house cleaning was in order. Well, the chief had earlier declared prohibition to be unenforceable and the largest source of police protection rackets. And one can sympathize with him. He had seen his former Lieutenant Roy Olmsted learn the bootlegging business by busting rum runners, and he decided Roy decided that the latter was a more profitable occupation, and it became one of the largest rum runner in the nation. Rum runner business. But the Bertha laxness must have seen a poor excuse for corruption, and so she didn't like his answers to what she had to say, and she fired him on the spot and replaced him with second in command. Well, that proved unworkable, so she decided to declare an emergency and assumed the office of police chief herself, beginning to crack down on gambling joints and speakeasies. Well, the mayor, Doc Brown, was informed by telegraph of her actions, and he caught the first train back from New York, and 3 days later promptly reinstated the status quo ante. But she had become a national sensation during her 10-day coup, and had laid down the marker as a force to be reckoned with. Well, anyway, she was re-elected to the council in 1925, and with some reluctance accepted a draft to run against Brown for mayor in 1926. As the election neared, rum runner Ray Olmsted, along with 65 associates, were hauled up on trial. The trial was hotly covered in the Seattle papers and across the nation, and the day before the election, Olmsted himself was found guilty and given 4 years prison at McNeil Island. In good part, due to this renewed attention on Brown's cozy tolerance of Olmsted's operations, Bertha defeated him for the mayor and became the first woman mayor of a major American city. This was in 1926, as said. In office, she continued her fight against bootleggers and other scofflaws, fought for the municipally owned utilities of City Light and the streetcar system, and far expanded hydroelectric power, which is related, of course, to the streetcar system, on the Skagit Valley, expanded welfare systems, particularly for children, and put city finances in order. One could say she was a progressive in the era between the two Roosevelts. Between these exercises in wholesome good government, she also performed the ritual duties of a gracious hostess, welcoming such celebrities as Will Rogers, Charles Lindbergh, Roald Amundsen, and Queen Maria of Romania. For the latter, there was a drive up the Ave and past Roosevelt High School for the tree planting at the Seattle Yacht Club. However, without her own political machine, Bertha was defeated in 1928 by a powerful machine unleashed by her unflinching positions on better civic government as she saw them. The Civil Service League sought to protect jobs, and the Power Trust of the Boston owners of the Puget Sound Power and Light Company sought to strengthen its position against City Light, raising large amounts of dark money on behalf of an unknown theater owner, Frank Edwards, who revealed no policies beyond the blandest bromides and refused to campaign except through massive media purchases of largely negative sort against what he called petticoat rule. This time it was Edwards who pulled off a landslide. After firing the superintendent of City Light in 1931, however, it was recalled by a 62% majority for, among other things, refusing to enforce the laws against prostitution, gambling, liquor, and narcotics. And so it went back and forth between law and order and lax tolerance of an unpopular prohibition. Bertha accepted her defeat with equanimity, continued with lecture tours until the mid-1930s as a political celebrity. After Henry's death, she remained here at the Wilsonian until leaving for California in 1941.